But I guess it's always an opportunity to refresh for those of us who are not. And some of us might not know the Vajrasattva practice. How many of us haven't done the Vajrasattva before? Just getting some, maybe David. You done Vajrasattva before, David? Maybe only David, yeah. Maybe Tegan and Alexia have probably done. Did you do that practice at all at the Siti Garba group? You've probably done in the past, yeah? So I hope it's not too basic for you, the class, but I guess it's always good to remind ourselves about karma, the importance of purification. And I say we only have two classes left, so it was a bit difficult to figure out a topic for two classes. So I thought, well, we'll just kind of go over karma and the importance of purifying again. And Eloise also asked me to talk a little bit about my experiences with purification. So I'll either do that at the end of the class this week or we'll do it at the beginning of next week because that was my main mantra for I felt when I first met the Dharma was like, I need to purify. I think when I first sort of understood a little bit the Four Noble Truths, it was just like very clear that it's like, okay, that I need to purify, you know. So I've had, and we have to continue our journey of purification, you know, throughout our lives when we really understand the implications of karma. So let's just start with a few minutes, maybe 5, 10 minutes of meditation. Just going to start with settling our mind in whatever way works for you, getting into the body, into the breath for a couple of minutes. And again, if it's helpful, just to clarify the mind for the busyness of the day, you know, of course, because the winds, the quality of our wind energy affects our mind. The quality of our mind affects our wind energy in the body, which we know even if we get acupuncture, you know, body and mind feel a bit better. When we do yoga, the body and mind feel a bit better. So we don't have time for that in the class, but you know, one simple way in this tradition is doing the 9 round breathing. Sort of internal clearing and rebalancing and the wind energy to settle the mind before we do start practice. So if you want to do that, we can start with just closing off the right nostril, inhaling gently through the left, exhaling through the right 3 times. Slow, deep breathing all the way through down into the deep into the belly, softening through the jaw, the back of the mouth as we inhale and exhale. Exhaling through the right nostril, moving that finger. We do 3 times this side. Then opposite side, first finger of the right hand, closing off the left, blocking the left nostril, inhaling through the right, exhaling through the left. So we can inhale clean energy, purifying, light and nectar, or just light, and then exhaling kind of dust, smoke, whatever it feels like that's sort of blocking, perhaps blocking our clarity or meditation or mind right now. 3 times, both sides. And then 3 times through both nostrils. Allowing the breath maybe to go a little bit deeper as we inhale. Holding for a count of 1. Allowing that space, just being aware of that space as we hold, allowing it to pervade the body, and then exhaling. And in that space, take a moment to think, what do we understand? What's the kind of first thought that comes to mind when we think about karma? What is karma? So whether we are aware or not, it's our intention or our set our will, that how we motivate, how we feel and think on a daily basis, which is guiding our actions of body, speech, and mind. Karma is intention. And it's related to motivation. They sort of come together. And it's our karma that's creating the display, our karma for past life, that's creating this display or appearance of our present life experience. And it's simultaneously what we do actions of our body, speech, and mind on a daily basis, which is creating the appearance of our future lives. Moment by moment, we are creating implants. We're like implanting and embedding karmic seeds, like putting money in the bank, onto our consciousness. And this kind of sets the stage of our future life's experience. As we, the deeper we understand karma, how it plays out in our life, what we discover is that the reality, that the product of our lives now and what we'll experience in the future, down to even momentary experiences, is our creation, it's our own responsibility. The deeper our intuitive understanding or realization of karma, how it operates continually in our life experience, it's like the energy of our lives. We also discover that we can't, it's a sort of deep realization that we can't blame anyone or anything for our problems. On the opposite side of the coin, though, we can also feel a sense of happiness and joy about what we've created so far. It's amazing, we've created this, what we call a precious human life in the Buddhist tradition, in the Lam Rim. Albeit not perfect, but it offers us this incredible freedom and opportunity to study and practice Dharma. When we take refuge in the Buddhist teachings, we become an inner being. And a large part of that inner being, a large part of the freedom that we have to take hold of is this understanding of karma. The more we understand karma, the more we understand how to mold the causes of happiness into our mind stream, We have to create that ourselves. And the more we understand karma, we understand that kind of responsibility, personal and universal, we have to do that. So along ourselves, all beings, whether they realize it or not, accept it or not, believe it or not, we're all held hostage by karma and delusions right now. We're in this cycle of samsara, death and rebirth, suffering and the causes of suffering. And without the guidance of the Buddha's teachings, there's no way we would be able to figure out how to get out of that ourselves. So I find it often really helpful to remember, even though it can be a lot to chew on, the teachings of the Buddha, just understanding the basics of karma gives us so much peace. We understand the importance of not killing, stealing, lying, refraining from harming others, because it brings us happiness. We receive so much inner peace by training our mind like that. And again, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche always said, even though we don't do much to benefit others, by just observing the virtues or refraining from the non-virtues, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, we give incredible peace to others. Even though it doesn't look like much, we're not harming others. And we're creating the causes for our own happiness and our own wisdom through this kind of container, practicing the container immorality. Within that container immorality, observing karma, all the different levels of happiness, spiritual happiness up to enlightenment can come very easily. So again, just thinking about, how, just for a moment, for those of us, many of us already studied the teachings, how before we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, recite the refuge prayer, how just by hearing killing, not to kill. I mean, many of us came in with a level of that habit in this life, but maybe not completely, maybe we still killed bugs, things that we were afraid of, or stealing, maybe we had some habit there, or lying. So just those first few precepts, just understanding, the harm it gives us by creating those karmas, and how much we understood from hearing the Buddhist teachings to refrain from that. That's so kind, because that sets the stage for a future happiness. By us already understanding from refraining from them, creates so much peace and happiness in our future lives. So this all came from the kindness of the Buddha, his realization. He took many lifetimes to achieve realization, to awaken. And he did it so he could benefit us. So we all have this incredible karma with Shakyamuni Buddha. We have the karma to be able to have some level of trust and faith in his teachings. Even though we can't see karma right now, we can't see future lives, we can't necessarily see past lives, we can induce, and we have some kind of spiritual sensitivity and merit with Shakyamuni Buddha to have faith and conviction to a certain level in his teachings and karma. So that's amazing. That's our own merit. So with that sense of refuge, even just in the teachings on karma and how much we've practiced it so far, and feeling compassion for all beings, especially those who don't have access to these teachings, who don't accept them, don't believe them, and maybe are not able to practice karma properly, in a way that brings about the future happiness. For all those, with compassion, not judgmentalness, but with compassion, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma and Sangha, and the special quality of the Buddha's teachings to benefit us, keep benefiting us all the way up to enlightenment for ourselves and for all sentient beings. So we recite together, one time in Tibetan, twice in English. Sangye chodan sogi chognam na janju bardu dani kyapsu chi dagi jun sogi be sonamgi drola penjir sangye dru parshog. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. So just affirming, just for a moment, our sense of refuge, whether we've taken refuge already or we're just taking refuge in the wisdom of the Buddha for this evening. We're investigating more deeply the teachings of the Buddha before we take refuge, wherever we are, affirming that sense of refuge. It's already powerful way to create karma, positive merit in our mind stream. This meditation on refuge. Okay, so welcome. As I was just saying to a few people before we started, I know that quite a few of you are familiar with karma. So, and because we only have two classes, I can't go into much detail. So for some of you, it might just be refreshing. And because of that, I may ask some of you what you know, just also to refresh your understanding, you know. And then, so this week we're going to do, this is kind of the course outline for the next 2 weeks. We're going to say, what is karma? Just a brief introduction to what is karma, a reminder what is karma for some of us. How we create karma, reminding ourselves, what's the process? How do we create it? How does that happen? Why we need to purify, and the Vajrasattva practice. Just going into that. So next week we'll do a little bit more of the Vajrasattva practice. Doing that together, probably next week we'll probably finish the teaching at the start of the class and do the Vajrasattva practice at the end of the class. That'll be a little bit different format. So I'll have to just explain it first or just refresh again for some of you. And it's always, I mean, myself as well, if I don't refresh on these things, we just forget a lot of the points, you know. So it reminds us, you know, it makes the practice whole and more alive again every time we hear it. So again, so here we have Venerable Rubina. She's excellent in speaking about karma, you know. So karma, okay, here she says, everything we say, do, or think in Buddhist terms is karma. So again, just reaching out here. Who wants to give it a go? When we think about karma, just in a couple of sentences or a couple of words, what is karma? What comes into your mind? I just wanted to bring it up at the beginning of the meditation. Somebody want to put their hand up? Yes, Mary.
Karma is creating the causes for something else to happen, either positive or negative. It's the
Yes.
action that we take.
Actions, yeah, good, yeah. And it's creating causes for things to happen. Yes, is that what you said? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yes, great. Anyone else want to add to that? Sue?
Well, like it says here, everything we do, think, and say causes the future for us. So there was that thing about how if we want to know what we've done in the past, how does that go? Then
Yes, that's true, Sue. Yeah, that's coming up.
okay, sorry.
No, but no, you can say, you know, why not, you know?
Whatever we've done in the past, if we want to know why we're here, like what's the situation, why our life is the way it is because what we've done in the past. And if we want to know what the future is going to be, then we know what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Something like that. Yeah, good, we're there. Anyone else just got some, you know, like something a little bit different? As Venerable Rabina says, that's here too. Anything else that comes up about karma? Does anyone know what the direct karma's a Sanskrit term? What does it translate into? I mean, Mary kind of said, but just so we know, karma, what does it actually translate into? Kind of like 2 words, 2 or 3 words, yes?
Julia has something. I was just going to say that besides we're creating the cause and condition for what's going to happen in our life, it cumulatively increases if we don't purify it, the negative karma. And the positive karma we can put in the bank and it helps us create future, you know, we're accumulating merit and creating cause and condition for future positive states. So
That's right. That's one of the characteristics of karma is that it increases actions. Karmic seeds increase in the mental continuum. Yeah. Anyone else? Just it's always good to kind of know, well, what do I know? Yeah, Morgan? Yeah.
From my understanding, it's intention and action that creates the process of creating like other effects.
Very good. Yeah, because I asked what's the actual translation. So karma translates into kind of like, you know, Sanskrit also often it's, you know, it has often a few meanings, but as Morgan was saying, it translates into action. So as Morgan said, you know, it's actions we're creating. What actions? Actions continually we are creating with our body, speech, and mind. You know, it's like Venerable Rabina says, everything we say, do, or think, that's action, you know. We are body, speech, and mind. We have these 10 virtues and non-virtues that we create constantly. We are body, speech, and mind. So that's karma, the actions we take. We're creating that. And as some, I think Julia said, you know, we're creating seeds with this action. So we have this continuity consciousness, you know, that goes from life to life. And within that, there's an active aspect, and the active aspect is the karma. What we're doing, we are mind all the time. We're creators in our mind. We're creating things all the time. We're mind, yeah. So what we're doing is we're creating actions with our body, speech, and mind, and they plant seeds in our mental continuum. That just like in a, you know, like when we plant a garden, you know, it's very similar. The analogy in a garden's like one of the best analogies, you know, like we have this inner garden, our mind, our consciousness. And within that, there's a gardener there that's planting seeds all the time. And that's the active part of your mind. That's our will, our intention that's creating and planting something all the time. The actions that we're doing with our body, speech, and mind, creating imprints on the mind constantly. So of course, but in a garden, you know, you plant a seed, it doesn't ripen right away. So right now, what we're doing, as Sue was saying, it's like we're these constant gardeners, you know. So whether we believe it, we're aware of it or not, what the Buddha said, and it's what Venerable Rabina is saying, there's just energy going on all the time. We were planting in our consciousness seeds that will bring about future happiness, just like in a normal garden. We plant a seed, and if we, you know, we tend it, we take care of it, it eventually ripens into something, you know, a plant or, you know, a fruit or a tree. So similarly, karma's like that, you know. And as one aspect of it is, as what Julia said, you know, one quality or characteristic. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that because I want to focus more on the importance of purifying, but just to give us a little bit, you know, again, clarity in the sort of function of karma. Is that, but as Julia said, why it's important to purify is because these, just by nature, karma increases in our mental continuum. We don't have to do anything. It's just the nature of karma that it increases. And Venerable Rabina calls it a bit like we have this kind of seed bank. We have a bank of seeds going on in our mental continuum all the time that we're carrying with us, we brought from past lives. Now, our seed bank can have, you know, positives and negatives in it. You know, we've created good actions and not so wholesome actions. So that seed bank we're carrying all the time. And that's what, and as Venerable Rinpoche says, that's Buddha's explanation also of why things happen to us, because it's this process of causality. You know, we create a seed, and then when certain causes and conditions ripen in our life, that seed ripens into an appearance for us, an appearance of happiness or suffering. What you plant, you harvest, such are the fields of karma. So again, a bad thing happened to me, but I'm not going to get angry at my friend because that's just going to create the situation of anger to come back. So again, this kind of happens when we start, and some of us already are in that place, we start to get some idea of how karma, because it's very experiential. I mean, of course, we have to hear the teachings on karma, then we have to meditate on them, and then reflect on them in our own from our own personal experience. That's the best way to understand karma. But one of the main ways to understand it is like everything basically right now is our karmic experience, karmic appearance. It's due to the law of karma that stuff happens to us. Stuff appears to us. Somebody appears angry, somebody appears like a friend. You know, we have the appearance of, you know, a good family life. We have appearance of a difficult family life. We have appearance of easily getting a job. We have an appearance of not easily getting a job. We have an appearance of being in a, you know, a kind of peaceful country. We have appearance of not being in a peaceful country. All this is it's the appearance of our karma. And it's something that we've created in our past, most likely in our past life. Because, you know, I mean, all of us, we share a kind of similar karma right now, but if we look around the world, everybody has so much different varieties of karma. Then when we look at the animal realm and the variety of karmas that they experience, And I always think, well, if it's not karma, what else would it be? Why does everyone else? I mean, if there's a creator God, yeah, who would, there's no way that a creator God would create all these different karmic appearances. Some people having incredibly much more suffering than others, you know. So I find that quite helpful to think, even when I might have a sort of doubt about karma, then why do other people, why do we all experience things differently? Why do we always all come into this world with different, you know, different lives, different capacities, different family situations? Why does that happen, you know? So of course, Buddha's explanation is it's because of the karma. We've created that ourselves in our past lives. So there's nothing really in a level unfair that's happening to us. There's nothing in a level that when we understand karma deeply that we need to become a victim of, you know, because yeah, we're a victim of the karma we created in our past life. But the beautiful part about karma is it's, you know, it's dynamic. We can change it in any time, in any moment. So Reba Rinpoche, he was a, I don't know, I don't think anyone here maybe met Reba Rinpoche, but he was a great Lama. His incarnation's already, I think, 20, you know, studying in the monasteries in South India. But I was fortunate to meet him in my early years as a nun. And of course, he went through, I mean, he was a prisoner. He was tortured in China. He was, you know, taken prisoner in 59 when the Chinese invaded Tibet. And he spent a good 20, 25 years of his life in Chinese prison. And I mean, if he can say this, then then we need to, you know, we need to think deeply about it. But he said, as soon as you blame others for your problems, as soon as you get into that mindset of being a victim, you lose your refuge. So that's quite a big statement to swallow, yeah. What's that? What that's really saying is, and I mean, of course, we're not all there yet, and we need to really think about that. But if we think more deeply about the life evolution, the karma, then everything is appearing from our, you know, is our karmic appearance to have this problem, to have this difficult person, this difficult situation, and not to feel completely swallowed by it, drowning in it. We can also change the karma, you know, it might not happen right away, but karma has this dynamic aspect to it, you know, it's action, it's activity. So we continually changing the actions of our body, speech, and mind, creating actions with our body, speech, and mind. And with, you know, having met the teachings, we have the possibility in every moment to shift and change and purify our karma. So why did Reba Rinpoche said you lose your karma? Well, I think your refuge is because one of the main causes of refuge is really a sort of deep understanding of karma, how everything's our own creation, you know, and how we are the creators of our happiness and suffering, our happiness, all the way up to enlightenment. That's the nature of our mind. That's the energy of our life. There's nothing separate from that in our experience than karma, how we perceive things. So it's like what I was saying, you know, it's what Lama Yeshe says, karma is the energy of phenomena, and there's nothing to do with what your mind believes. As I say, whether we believe it or not, according to the Buddha's according to the Buddha's teachings, that's that's our experience all the time. So as Lama Yeshe says, I'm going to read this out, it doesn't depend on you believing it or not. The mere fact of your existence proves the existence of karma. So that's interesting. Just their existence alone, how we experience life, and especially the fact that everybody experiences life differently. We all have different mindsets. We here have similar kind of mindset, similar, you know, similar level of karma, similar interests, but even within that, our minds are still different. Irrespective of whether you want to know about karma or not, whether you believe it or not, doesn't matter. Lama Yeshe says, we are karma. You can't separate yourself from karma any more than you can separate yourself from energy. You are energy, you are karma. The example he gives, if you're a human being, it doesn't matter whether other beings think you're a human being or not, right? You're a human being. That's a conventional reality, you know, we're all human. So it doesn't really matter on what you think or believe. Similarly with karma, that the truth of all existence, it doesn't matter what we believe right now, that we are karma. We are a product of our karma right now. Even down to how we perceive ourselves in a positive or negative way, you know. So, you know, sometimes you see people are really, really beautiful, you know, but they think so badly of themselves. They've such a low opinion of themselves, low self-esteem. I mean, almost it's like, you know, they have a beauty, but sometimes they don't see it, you know, because they're thinking so badly of themselves. They have to do so much on the outside because somehow they still perceive themselves in a sort of ugly, low way. You know, so that's really interesting. So again, it's a perception of the mind. And really what it boils down to is what we call a level of merit or goodness that we have in the mind, how we perceive ourselves, how our life goes. It's a level of merit, good karma, good fortune that we've created in our past life. So again, this life, we have, you know, we have challenges, we have sickness, we have obstacles, but I think we all agree, you know, we have incredible fortune, that's our merit. And it's something for Westerners we have to be sort of grateful for every day, you know, have a deep appreciation of that. Because again, everything now is a momentary experience, our karmic imprints that we've created in our past lives. And as like His Holiness says, you know, sometimes think, oh, karma, it's my karma. We get discouraged because something's heavy and difficult. That's okay, you know, you can accept that in the level, but not to be stuck in there, you know, because karma is action. Yeah, that direct translation is action. So it means it's active. So it's an active force that's going on all the time. So the future events are completely in our hands. It's true, sometimes karma ripens and it takes a while. We have to go through it. Sickness, difficult family situations. I mean, some of us had to go maybe through difficult stuff in our childhood. Okay, we had to go through that. Maybe at that time we didn't have much power to change that, you know. We didn't really know how to work with our minds, our emotions. But right now is the time when we can be active, you know. We need courage and inspiration to shift and change our actions and make them more and more positive. And, you know, really, the more convinced we become about the inner law of cause and effect, it's actually really inspiring, you know. It gives us a lot of energy to change and improve one's life when we understand what we can create, all the causes we can create up to Buddhahood. Okay, right now Buddhahood's really far away, you know, but we can certainly, you know, through the power of refuge, taking vows, purify, there's a lot we can do with our karma at the level we're at. And we are doing, many of us are doing that now. And just to clarify again, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, karma helps you to remember there's no separate mind outside of yours that creates your life. It's where our real life at the most profound level is explained. So the thing is about karma as well. Oh, we can't, as I say, it's called, there's different types of phenomena. There's manifest phenomena. So there's phenomena that we can see, you know, every day, the cup, the spoon, the plate, you know, things that we're dealing with in daily life, things through our senses that we can see. And we all agree, you know, on a conventional level that the plate exists, the table exists, you know, the building exists, things outside, anything to do with the senses, you know, the flowers, the smells, they're kind of what we call manifest phenomena. Something that we can see and we can talk about and relate to and discuss together. It's right in front of our senses, you know, manifest. Then there's a level of phenomena that's called hidden phenomena. And hidden phenomena are something like impermanence, as an example. You know, so we kind of know on some level that things are changing subtly moment to moment, our body. You know, the cells in our body, everything's moving and shifting all the time. Even we know, you know, the atoms on the table, we can look through microscopes and see, you know, scientists know that things are shifting and changing and moving all the time, you know. So we can't see that directly, but we just use a little bit of logic and analysis. It's also with the teachings on, impermanency, death and impermanence. We can't see these things directly, but we just apply a little logic and reason. And it's easy to come to that conclusion. We can accept that, the Buddha's teachings on impermanence, they're not too complicated. Karma's, it's more difficult, it's not something we can see, it's not something tangible. It's actually karma's only really perceived at the level of what we call an Arya being, someone who's had a direct perception of emptiness, I think maybe if you develop certain levels of concentration, maybe Shine, you may be able to see some subtleties of karma. I'm not completely sure, but mostly we can't really perceive certain types of karma until we have a direct perception of emptiness. And even then, for Arya beings, arhats, they still don't see all the subtleties of karma. It's only a Buddha that can see all the different levels of, all our past lives, all our karmas, all the karmas that came into, place to just build one table, where all the different parts of the tree came, who built the tree, where the previous tree, all the layers all the way back, only a Buddha can see those kind of subtleties. So it's not an easy one to grasp, it's a very profound teaching, karma. But I think in our own lives, we can see, I certainly realised when I started to purify and I started to take vows and just kind of try and manage my karma, a little bit better, you start to feel more peace. And that's really where it comes through our own experience of just practicing karma according to how the Buddha taught us. So, of all the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, the most essential one, the one that leads us to enlightenment, is karma. Our observing karma is our most vital practice. So I think, as Rinpoche said, and as all the lamas, all the teachers, all the gurus say, I mean, the kindest thing, the kindest teaching that the Buddha taught for us, especially at our level, and really all the way up. I mean, one has to observe karma all the way through the practice of the Lam Rim, all the way through the three levels of the three capable beings, the lower capable being to achieve a good future rebirth. That's the motivation for the lowest capable being in the Lam Rim, just trying to assure we get a good future rebirth. And most of us, we're there, yeah? We're there with that one, yeah? We want to have a good future rebirth. So at that level, well, we have to observe karma, Then at the level of achieving liberation and enlightenment, liberation, the second level, second capable being, one who's striving for liberation, understanding the nature of samsara. What are the two causes of suffering? And the first two noble truths, there is suffering. There is the causes of suffering. So the two main causes are karma and delusion. So at that level as well, when we develop renunciation, we have to observe karma. We have to observe even more carefully our karma as we want to develop realizations. I mean, eventually at this level, at the level we are, even to get a good future rebirth, we're creating action. And when I say karma, it's more kind of like contaminated karma, contaminated actions. Because even at the level of a Buddha or very high level bodhisattvas, I mean, they're active, there's enlightened activity. So it's not all of a sudden they just stop doing stuff when you achieve liberation and enlightenment. No, I mean, at that level, they have the qualities and what they're called there's enlightened activities of the Buddha. I mean, look at the example, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, how much activities they do for others. It's like beyond our imagination, So they act, they do things with their body, speech, and mind continually, but it's pure action. It's not creating karma that causes I mean, from my perspective, they're no longer bound by contaminated karma, by action that throws one back into samsara. So even right now, we create actions of no killing, stealing, lying. I mean, it's cleansing the mind, it's purifying the mind. but still there's a grasping at a sense of self around that, you know, so we're still, these actions they just bring us back into samsara, but in a very, you know, a good situation where there's no war, where there's no famine, disease, you know, and it causes us to get a good future rebirth and again practice. But at our level still, you know, we're creating our karmas, whether they create happiness or suffering, it's bringing us back into samsara, this at the level we're at, you know. So without renunciation and then of course developing the wisdom, realizing emptiness, until we're at that point, we're creating karmas bringing us into samsara. But ideally the karmas are getting thinner and thinner. They're not as motivated so strongly by the delusions of anger, attachment, and especially ignorance, grasping true existence. We're just trying to thin our karmas, you know. So eventually the karma becomes light, 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 and then eventually the mind becomes very pure, quite purified, you know. So we're able to get into more deeply meditations on emptiness, and eventually, hopefully, realize emptiness. But as ordinary beings right now, we're continually creating karma. And it's only by observing and purifying and being completely mindful of our karma that we eventually, you know, along with, they create the basis for us to develop realizations, to clean the mind out so that we can develop these realizations that we need to, you know, shamatha, you know, wisdom, realizing emptiness, and then the levels of bodhicitta. That our karma supports all those realizations in the mental continuum. So it's like the most essential ingredient, you know, for our dharma practice. Without observance of karma, you know, there's no practice really. Proper karma, you know. Good karma, there's no really other practice because we continue to harm others, we continue to pollute our minds. Why is it so? So anyway, I answered that. I think so. So yeah, just to connect, you know, so why is karma so important? Because it's the two within the causes of suffering. Why are we in samsara? Because we have these two elements in the mind, you know, that need to be purified and transformed. Karma, contaminated karma, action. We need to purify and transform our actions so they become more and more good, more and more pure. And on top of that, you know, we need to purify the delusions, you know, and it's the delusions that motivate karma. Anger, attachment, ignorance, grasping at true existence. So those two side by side, we need to keep purifying, cleansing the mind. So the mind becomes lighter and lighter and lighter, and then we're molding. It's this process as the mind lightens. It's more easy to mold the mind. Rimshi used to use that analogy as well, you know, as we purify, lighten the heavy load, the imprints that we have in our karmic bank, you know, we get rid of those slowly, and we kind of ripen the mind in goodness. Then it's much, you know, slowly, the mind starts to get molded very easily into enlightenment. So as beginners, which most of us are, you know, we're still beginners when we look at the great beings, you know. So as beginners, we have to keep purifying, you know. It's like there's not, I mean, Lamas on Kappa. Does anyone know how many prostrations Lamas on Kappa did? Mary? No?
Something like 500 million or something like that. I've read it.
Well, that's quite mind-blowing, but not quite that. But you know, so the 35 Buddha practice of prostrations along with Vajrasattva, that's one of the, you know, two main types of purification practices we do in this tradition, you know. I mean, everything can be a purification. Listening to teachings, everything becomes purification when you're changing and transforming your mind into Dharma, you know, so it's all purification. But there's 35 Buddhas, you recite each of their names. Lama Tsongkhapa did 100,000 for each Buddha. 3.5 million. So of course we're like, wow, you know, I'm lucky if I can get 35 done a day, you know, but it's just for this purpose of rejoicing, you know, how wonderful it is, you know, and he did many, many purification practices, but that's how many he did just the purification alone, you know, so it kind of just a little bit highlights how important it is to do some purification, you know, he was already a great holy being. And as I say, next week I'll share a little bit on how it really, I felt it, you know, it really benefited me, and maybe some of you want to share as well. We'll do that next week. So just, yeah, just in a little nutshell there, as I say, most of you know, but we have, as the case is with the lamb rim, whatever topic, but we need to go through the lamb rim constantly. We need to kind of keep deepening and refreshing our understanding of karma. Oh, someone is Maka. Would you like? Oh, there we go. We have to keep deepening and freshening and inspiring the mind towards purification, and whatever. And it can, it happens with all our Dharma activities, really, but there's a way that we can make our purification a little bit more skillful and just a bit more clear all the time with our deepening our understanding of karma. So again, just a little bit in a nutshell again, the 4 aspects or components of karma, how do we create karma? So there's these 4 bases, how karma's how it's functioning, how we're creating it in the mind. So you need these 4 parts, so we have the basis. So there's a being that we create karma with, yeah. So for example, killing karma, yeah. So I'm just curious. So I would say, when I came into this life when I was young, I mean, I didn't go out and kill things intentionally, but I was afraid of bugs, and we used to get quite big beetles in the winter time around our house, or I would see them on the road and they kind of freaked me out. And I had this thing about spiders. So I would ask my mum if there was a spider in my room, up in the corner of our room, because we had one house we lived in was quite damp, so we used to get quite a lot of spiders and beetles and things. And so I would ask my mum to kill them, because I was too, I found them a bit scary, So I didn't come in with like this kind of clarity or softness in mind, like it's not good to kill any being. I didn't have that imprint. Yeah. I mean, of course, I wasn't going out actively killing others, and I did have a sense of humans, I mean, all that. But, if we, I'm hoping next life, if I don't go to a pure realm, that next life, how wonderful if I really have this strong instinct not to kill any being, not to harm any being. That would be wonderful. But I didn't have it because I didn't have it this life. That's kind of what inspired me to take a refuge in the beginning. That was one reason, like, if I take refuge, immediately with that, you take the vow of no killing, So I thought, well, this is creating a strong imprint on my mind not to kill for future lives by taking the vow as well, because I mean, I had it to a level. I knew killing wasn't good, but I didn't project it onto every single being. I felt like some beings were, oh, it was okay to kill them because they were scary, or, like that, enough. I didn't feel there was any particular harm with hunting or fishing. I wasn't interested in it myself, but I didn't feel like, oh, that's really bad. I didn't understand that it's creating bad karma. I didn't feel a sensitivity for the animals that was happening to. It's not something I was interested in it, but I didn't have that awareness generally around that. So I'm curious, did anyone here? I mean, these kind of things, I find it really helpful to go over. Well, what were my imprints coming into this life, Did anyone here have a sort of natural instinct not to harm any type of being? There was maybe somebody or something that you thought it was okay. Yeah. And it's not to beat ourselves up about it or be judgmental. I just find it really interesting. Well, what were the imprints that I came in with? I mean, as soon as I heard the Buddha's teachings, I went to not the first 10-day course, but a few months later, I went to another one, and it clicked in quite quickly. It's like, of course, you don't do that, So I did have, the foundation was there, but I didn't have it automatically without hearing it again. So it did come to a certain extent, but it took a while, So again, these kind of, I find it really helpful just to go over and see, well, what tendencies was I coming in with this life? So again, so when we create karma, how are we creating it? Well, there's the basis, for example, killing karma mosquito. Then there's this intention, we want to kill the mosquito because it's, it's trying to bite us, it's trying to take our blood or whatever. And then we create the deed, we actually kill the mosquito. And the completion of that is the final thing is the mosquito actually died. So these are what we call the 4 aspects of karma, how karma plays out with many actions we've done. Now we're talking here about non-virtues, because the emphasis, kind of where we're going with in this class is like why we need to purify. Of course, we create a lot of good deeds, and they have these 4 aspects as well: our intention, the basis, someone we want to help, you know, and then we actually, you know, we have the intention to help them. Maybe we're generous, we offer something, you know, like some food, and then the completion is they receive the food, you know, they take the food. And then a further completion on that is, if it's a positive action, we rejoice how wonderful it is, you know. Similarly, if we kill the mosquito and go, oh, I'm so glad I did that. And, oh, you know, it was, you know, we sort of have this feeling of rejoicing or happiness in the suffering of the other being, then that creates a heavier karma as well. But these are the 4 main components, again, and most of us are aware of how we create karma. So sometimes we don't create what we call a complete karma. And this comes into play a little bit when we go into the next couple of slides. So there's a complete karma, and sometimes there's incomplete actions, like we have the intention to kill the mosquito, but the mosquito flies away and we don't do it in time, you know. But still we create karma, because what's karma? Intention. We had the intention to kill it, but we didn't do the deed, and we didn't complete it because the mosquito flew away, you know. So there's still a karma, because karma's intention. So again, energetically, we're body, speech, and mind, we're creating actions all the time. So even having the intention, similarly, if we have the intention to help someone sincerely, you know, we want to help, but somehow the condition doesn't come around to help that person for whatever reason, you know. But still we create good karma because we have the intention to help. You know, so it creates a seed, but it doesn't complete the karma because we weren't able to completely either kill the mosquito or help that person, but we're still creating imprints on the mind. So when the 4 aspects here, the 4 components are complete, that's when it's what we call a heavier karma, you know, a complete karma. When 1 or 2 or 3 of them are there, then it's more of an incomplete karma. So it doesn't have as strong as a result, either negatively or positively. So just mentioning that as we go into the next slide, or the next couple of slides, because we've got these 2 aspects of karma, you know, these 2 distinctions. And this comes into play, as Sue was talking about a little bit earlier, you know, past life clues to current life maladies, what's going on, you know, how can we decipher a little, to some extent, you know, what happened. As Sue was saying, we can, when we study karma, because when you study karma, you study the virtues, the non-virtues, the results of those, and different karmas have different, you know, a variety of results. You know, one killing karma has 4 results, not just 1 result. One stealing karma has 4 results, not just 1 result, when it's complete. You know, so similarly, positive actions, when they're complete, have, you know, 4 results. So, and we'll talk about in the next slide how these manifest, but in terms of, so at the death time, while we're in samsara, what we want to be very kind of aware of now is these distinctions between projecting karma. So anyone want to share what their understanding of projecting karma is? Anyone know what projecting karma is? Morgan? She there?
Sorry, say again.
Morgan, do you know what projecting karma is?
I do not.
No? Anyone else? Sue? Julia?
I can
And
guess.
this is,
Projecting would be like not quite doing it, but thinking about it. Is that right?
So this actually, to give you more of a clue, it actually comes into play a little bit more what happens at the death time and projecting us into future lives. So at the, you know, for what brings us into future lives is these 2 types of karma. So at the death time, what we experience in terms of our future lives is these 2 types of karma. Projecting karma projects us in. So when we have the 4 aspects that we talked about before, our karma that has those 4 aspects. For example, killing karma. If we kill a human, And, you know, just say, for example, we kill a human or an animal, and we have these 4 aspects here. We do the deed, and also like we complete the deed, and maybe there's some rejoicing, you know, it's a heavy, you know, heavy thing, or a human, something heavy. That would be a projecting karma because it has these 4 aspects. And that karma, because it has these 4 aspects, that has the power to project us into where we're going to go in our next, what body we're going to have, what realm we're going to be in. So projecting karma explains like what realm. So right now, what's our projecting karma? We were, from our previous life, we were projected into throwing. Sometimes it's called throwing karma. That might help more. You know, it has these 2, sorry, yeah, because I thought somebody here's going to, and maybe throwing, it's easier to understand. So karmas that have these 4 aspects, you know, and especially if we create them a lot, you know, that can become like so heavy that becomes a throwing, a projecting. So it kind of, what it does is it sets the stage for our future lives, you know, what realm we're going to be born in. So if we've created a lot of heavy karma, it's likely we'll go to the lower realms, you know, a lot of killing karma, you know, maybe hunted a lot, or maybe we've created a lot of stealing karma in this life, you know. Then again, these types of karmas, when we study karma, if they're heavy and we're doing them a lot, that has the power to project us into the lower realms, just because of those 4 components. So right now we can rejoice, right? Because we must create, you know, if we deduce, you know, like if you keep vows, no killing, stealing, lying, morality is the main cause to get a human rebirth, the practice of morality. And morality, why? Not harming others. Either taking vows in our past life or having a very good heart and really not harming, not just humans, but non-humans, beings around us, practicing non-harming. But the main cause of the projecting karma that brings us into another human life is the practice of morality, keeping the vows, you know, lay vows. So that's why we've got so much to rejoice about. I mean, we've done it in our past life, and then we come in as a human, and we sort, you know, for us here, we see the benefits, that we're attracted to the benefits of that because we've practiced it before. The imprints are there. It's just, and that's what's projected us, those karmas done nicely, done well through familiarity, strongly, that's thrown us into this human life again. Someone has their hand raised up. You have a question? Yes, Julia?
Well, I was saying throwing karma because that's how I know it, but we were muted here. But I have a question about, like, if you're going through the different stages, you know, until you get to the near attainment, the black vision, like when you're going through the different visions at the time of death, as far as throwing karma, isn't there a possibility that you could purify, if you don't have all your negative actions purified at the time of death, and it's not a time where you can go through that purification, is there opportunity at that time with your throwing karma to, like at that time of near attainment, and when you could, you know, if you were a higher being, go into the clear light or become enlightened, can you purify that negative karma at that time too, even if you're not, like if something heavy happened and you might be going to the lower realms or something?
Oh, it depends on the level of it depends on your level of your mind and your meditation, you know. I mean, heavy karma, like heavy killing karma, stealing karma, the chances that would be difficult to you need to do that in this life, you know. You need to have quite a clean mind to be able to do a level of meditation at that level. You have to have a lot of merit, you know, to be able to meditate at these levels is subtlety. That's my understanding, you know. So that's why we need to purify in this life, and we need to be familiar with positive actions, familiar with those types of meditation. Otherwise, it's very difficult at that time, you know, especially when you go into subtle levels of consciousness. Now, there are things that lamas and holy beings can do for us if we have that karma too, but some of these heavy ones, you know, if they're not purified by the time, they will ripen, you know. So usually at the death time, the ones that ripen in the projecting karma that ripens are usually the heaviest ones, you know. So
that's what I'm worried about, is because I've done a lot of Vajrasattva practice and did in my own way. I did the Nundra when I was working, but not just in one retreat. But I still worry about that because I know how my mind is and I know what I've
I
done
know.
just this life, and I don't, it's a hard time. It's a hard thing for me to rely on my own method and practice of purification, but maybe I'm just a worrier, but
Well, we all, I mean, there is a valid reason to for all of us, we're not like, it's quite hard, especially we don't know what our level of our mind's going to be, but all we can do is rely on the purification, have a deep sense of refuge, have a familiarity. What are we going to try and think about at the death time? Who are we going to take refuge in, So that's almost like a whole other topic. But building up to that, as much as we can purify, I mean, I think you would probably agree, Julia, probably all of you have done some purification practices that has influenced and enlightened our minds to a point. Yeah.
yeah, well, periodically I go through feeling really good about myself, and then I make more mistakes. And so anyway, thank you very much. That was very helpful. I just
Yeah.
was having this thing going through my mind at that moment. So thank you for answering.
And the thing is, I think for us Westerners as well, we have to, as much as possible, do a lot of rejoicing in the good things we do. Definitely when we're in the purification mode, we need to look at what we need to purify. But alongside of that, we're developing this joy around it as well, this joy in our refuge and which I know all of you have too, but our mind's like this, it's it's a bit seesaw mind, it's up and down. That's the nature of samsara. It reminds us we're in samsara, right? So projecting karmas like that, it's just what it is. Throwing's even maybe better. It throws us. The one that has these 4 components complete, and it's a heavy one. That's the one. As Julia was mentioning, we go into these subtle levels of consciousness at the time of death. We go into the most subtle level of consciousness, clear light. But because of the power of unpurified karmas on the mind stream, we come out of that, and the heavy one projects us first of all into how we're going to look that life. Are we going to have a human body? Did that karma, are we going to appear to have a hell body, an animal body? It's the karmic appearance we get. That's what makes our karmic appearance. It's like it sets the stage. It's like the stage of our life, the throwing karma, the stage of the realm we're going to be born in. Does anyone know what's the other type of karma that influences the rest of our life? What's that called? Anyone remember?
The
Don't know.
completion karma.
Yes, very good. Yeah. Completing karma. So it's like we have the heavy one, the one with the 4 aspects, and then completing karma kind of fills out. It's like, the projecting karma sets the stage, and then the rest is like all the nuts and bolts and all the pieces that go onto the stage, what it looks like, our life, Are we going to be born into a place where there's peace? Are we going to be born in a place where there's war, where there's danger, where there's theft? Are we going to be born in a place where we have a loving family, or where we have a lot of conflict in our family? We're going to be born in a place where we've got wealth and material resource, or where there's poverty? And then, it continues to inform that completing karma the rest of our life. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't shift karma in that life, but it does very much, those 2 things set the stage as we go into this life, the projecting and the completing karma. Because, if we're born in a country where there's a lot of hardship and difficulty, it can be quite hard to get out of that, yeah, for some people. Some people make it, when they're born in these war-torn places. They make it out of that country by some, it looks miraculous, but somehow their karma is to get out of there when no one else gets out of there, They get to another country and they make it and they become a great athlete. I mean, I've watched documentaries like that of people born in these horrendous places, and somehow they get out of there because they have some athletic skill, or they have some musical capability. So that's some positive karma that comes in out of all that difficulty, So, and just because we have a human life, and okay, that's great, we have a human body, that's come through some morality we've created in past life. But other karmas we might have created, like, for example, a killing karma, maybe we didn't complete the deed of killing, so it's not a heavy karma, but we thought about killing others, we had the intention, we had the wish, Well, that can be a completing karma, so we get a lot of sickness in that life. Or we're born in a place where there's war, So we didn't go to the hell realm, but we ended up in a place where we were just surrounded by war or fear. So again, what all this does is ideally when we read about it and we think about it, it's like it's not to kind of feel like, oh my God, I'm drowning with all this, It's like, first of all, have compassion for all those who are in those situations, because they don't have access to these teachings. Even if they did, maybe it just washes, completely washes over. But if we start to develop some conviction in this, and through looking at our life already, this life, then it's like gives a lot of inspiration, as many as have. If we've taken vows, we're purifying, we're practicing the teachings, we're trying to shift our karma, So an example is of someone very inspiring, because we think, oh my gosh, I'll never get anywhere, As Julia was saying, when we look at our karma, but some of us have heard this story. I love this story about Angulimala, finger necklace. Some of us have heard that story already, yeah. But we'll just get a refresher. I mean, there's a whole sutra written about Angulimala because he was alive at the time of the Buddha, and he was actually a Brahmin, and he studied in the early part of his life. He had a lot of devotion for his teacher, but because he was a favorite of his teacher, the other students became very jealous, and they kind of pitted him against his teacher. So the teacher, developed a dislike for Angulimala as well. So he said but Angulimala had a lot of devotion to this one particular teacher. So the teacher told him, that what you need to do for me is you need to accumulate 1,000 fingers and make them into a necklace, and then bring them back to me. And of course, to cut the fingers off of people, well, you need to attack them. Sometimes they kill people. So he took that to heart, and he went and he started to accumulate these fingers. So you can see in the image here, that's what's around his neck. I think he's got more than one mala there. I heard that he hung them on trees and everything. He had so many fingers. And he was kind of feared. He ended up living in this kind of local forest, and he was feared by the local villagers, Nobody went into that place. So at some point, because he was alive at the time of the Buddha heard about Angulimala. And they had already collected 999 fingers, so he only needed one more finger to accomplish his goal, his mission that the teacher gave him. So, but the Buddha heard about that, and he said, well, I'm going to go into the forest and find Angulimala. And all the villagers were like, no, you can't go in there. He's really dangerous. But, the Buddha is the Buddha. He's fearless. That's one of the qualities in enlightened mind. There's no fear. And he knew that it was the right time. That's another quality in enlightened mind. They know the time, the exact time to subdue sentient beings. Some of us who have met teachers, you can see sometimes in your life when you meet a really special teacher, there's a time when your mind's ripened to meet that person. Maybe you met them 10 years before, but wouldn't have done anything. I can see that for the example with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. I'd met Rinpoche maybe 10 years before, a few years before, wouldn't influence my mind at all. But when your merit's there to meet a teacher or a Buddha, they appear, that's just the power of enlightened mind. So his Angulimala, it was the right time for the Buddha to appear, even though he committed all this atrocity, so much heavy karma. The Buddha walked into the forest, and he approached Angulimala, but then as soon as Angulimala saw him, Angulimala thought, yes, I can get my 1,000. And he knew the Buddha was a mendicant, he was like a spiritual being. But his focus was he needed to get this last finger, So he started to chase after the Buddha. But each time he ran faster and faster, he didn't get any closer. Even though the Buddha was walking, he didn't get any closer and closer to the Buddha. He couldn't understand it, And this is because of the power of the Buddha's qualities, he can create these feats, So he shouted out to the Buddha, I can't run anymore. Stop, stop. And the Buddha said, Angulimala, I have stopped, and you must stop now too. And Angulimala was kind of like confused. He didn't really understand. He's like, well, what's he talking about? I mean, he knew the Buddha he had heard about the Buddha, that he spoke the truth, and that he was a holy being. And so he said, but I have, you're still walking, and you say that you've stopped, so I don't understand, And could you explain to me what you mean? And the Buddha said, well, Angulimala, I have stopped being violent towards living beings. I've given up harming beings once and for all. but you continue to kill and harm all those you meet. So that's how I've stopped, and that's how you haven't stopped. And somehow through the power of that, again, this is this holy speech of the Buddha, it was like it deeply impacted the mind of Angulimala, and he sort of, went to his knees and prayed for forgiveness and took refuge in the Buddha. It just completely turned his mind away from killing, so, and he became a very devoted student of the Buddha. And it says through the power, just through the power of his refuge and his regret, he purified so much karma. Through power his devotion to the Buddha, his faith in the Buddha, his refuge in the Buddha, and the regret he had, that heart of harming others, to a point where he was able to achieve realizations in that life. So it's possible, and it's the same with Milarepa, Milarepa, I mean, look, he killed some like 20, 30 beings, and he was still able to purify and achieve enlightenment in that life. So it's all definitely possible. Our mind can definitely shift. I know sometimes what I find in the West, I thought about this with Milarepa's life. Sometimes in the West we think, well, we meet the Dharma, we've got all this stuff with our parents, that we need to work through. And it's true, it's not that we don't. But look at Milarepa. His mother, if you don't know about the life story about Milarepa, so when he was very young, he was born into a wealthy family. And then at a very young age, the father passed away, because you're talking about the 11th century. So the males, they held all the wealth, all the responsibility. So if the male passes away, the husband, I mean, the mother's in a difficult situation. So thinking, the father thought that, well, he had a brother. So he said to the brother, you please take care of my wife, and you've got these, you can take my possessions, but please make sure my wife and my son, I think she had a son and a daughter, were comfortable. So, but of course, once Milarepa's father passed away, the husband, the father's brother, and especially the wife, the aunt, they slowly took everything away from Milarepa and Milarepa's mother and the son. So they were left pretty much destitute with nothing for years, because the mother, at that time you can't work. They took they had to work in the fields. I mean, and they were quite wealthy before, so he ended up having a very difficult life. And the mother developed so much hatred towards the aunt and the uncle that she asked Milarepa to go off and study black magic, which he did. And he already had some sort of spiritual powers. I mean, he had been a practitioner for many lifetimes, but because he was devoted to his mother, he went and studied black magic. And of course, he killed so many beings. I don't think he actually killed the aunt, but I think he killed the uncle and many beings in the village, because all the villagers also were very nasty with the family when they had less status. So can you imagine your mother asking you to do that? I mean, it's quite mind-blowing when you think about it. So then when he met a guru, so he went off to meet one guru, studied black magic, killed all these people, then developed regret and heard about this great holy being Marpa. And because of that heavy karma, Marpa put him through all these hardships of building 9-story houses with massive stones on his back and breaking. I mean, it was a skillful way for him to purify the karma. So I thought, wow. That's someone who really had a hard time with his parents, because his mother asked him to do all that. Then he had to spend so much the first part of his spiritual life, when he was devoting himself to Marpa, purifying all that karma. And not just sitting doing Om Vajrasattva. No, he had to carry heavy rocks and build these 9-story buildings on his own. And so I thought, wow, well, it didn't just happen in the West. I mean, that's quite mind-blowing, really, to have to do that. Of course, it was still his karma, but because he's devotion to his mother, he did what she said. And then it caused him to have, not caused, the causes were there, but he had to purify all that, So I just thought, well, that's interesting, He had difficult stuff with his family too, And all that needed to be purified, all that family karma as well, because it was a very difficult family karma that he went through.
And he was willing to do it. That's what amazes me, is that he stuck with it. He didn't even, he just did it.
I mean, it's
Most
the
people
most,
say, forget it, see you later.
yeah, not, and I mean, he's stuck for so many years with Marpa, you know, putting him through all those hardships. That's what's really inspiring about Milarepa. And then, of course, he went and meditated in the mountains for years. So it's one of the first, if none of you, some of you are not familiar, it's one of the most inspiring life stories in the Buddhist, in this tradition, the story of Milarepa. I mean, you can't really find something more inspiring because, you know, talking about wanting to inspire yourself to purify, read the story of Milarepa because it's, you know, he came from much more than we did, much more challenge and difficulty and had such determination, you know. So you know, if he could do it and Mala can do it, we can all certainly do it. So yeah.
I have a question
Yes,
about
Sue?
Angulimala.
Yeah.
Why did his teacher tell him to, what was the intention of the teacher to tell him to get all those fingers?
So I read a few because there's actually a whole sutra on it, Sue. And what I read was that his teacher, he was actually quite a good student, you know, of his teacher. He had a Brahmin teacher. And because he was a good student, all the others got jealous. I mean, it was just some sort of karmic ripening. All the other students got jealous of him because he was kind of like the teacher's pet. And somehow they managed to pit him against the teacher. So the teacher just, I mean, you know, these things happen in life, isn't it? You know, people get jealous and then maybe they started saying things about, I mean, his name wasn't Angulimala, he had some other name before that, you know. So, you know, we can think in this life, these things happen all the time in human dynamics, you know. Someone likes someone else and then you start telling them stories about this other person so the teacher no longer likes them. So, and then out in nastiness, he does, I mean, it's just karma, how it ripens in these like really, really, sometimes really awful ways. You know, so that's why we have so many seeds on our mental continuum with other beings. I mean, you're talking about beginningless lifetimes, right? We've never not been here. It's like we can't destroy our consciousness when nuclear bombs are nothing, you know. We've always had continuity. We've always been here in some form or another. So we have all these minutiae of karma on the mental continuum. And if they're not purified, the causes and conditions come together and they can come, all these kinds of manifestations can happen. But interestingly enough, it still brought him to meet the Buddha. Sometimes we have to go through a lot, suffer a lot before we meet the Dharma, yeah? So maybe that was his way. You know, created a lot of harm, but through that, I mean, Milarepa also created a huge amount, but through that, they got great enthusiasm to achieve relax. So sometimes more suffering brings more benefit eventually. Not that we want to go out and harm people, but we can see that like when you suffer a lot, it brings you to this point of humility somehow, you know, and then you can become more open to spiritual teachings. So I guess that was just the way the path unfolded for Angulimala, but it did result in his liberation that life, you know, through all that. So yeah, oh no, where are we? Oh, sorry, I don't know. I'll have to just forward a little bit. Lost the slide. There we are, right. Can you see that? Yep. So Lama Yeshe. Again, this is kind of like what can happen if we don't think about suffering in the nature of samsara, karma, and delusion. It's easy to see other people's stuff, but I think before we met the Dharma, sometimes I think, well, I'm so pure and holy, I'm okay, you know? As Lama says, that's the kind of limitations of samsaric mind. And so as Lama said, you know, just recognizing, this is very inspiring, that we need to purify ourselves. That's a level of renunciation, that recognition. And we've all had that, and we all have that, most of us here who've been practicing. That is a level of renunciation. Lama Yeshe's wish for all Westerners, because Lama had a special connection with Vajrasattva, and he composed a Vajrasattva purification song, which is very, very nice. It only takes about half an hour, 40 minutes. And many of you have done that. He composed it for Westerners as a quick way to purify our karma. But his wish was that all Westerners would do 100,000 Vajrasattva purification practice. So because, yeah, that was kind of his heart wish for all us Westerners to be able to do that practice sometime in our life. So just before, we've got about another 10 minutes. So again, most of us are familiar with the four opponent powers. But so how do we really, what makes our purification? So next week when we do the Vajrasattva practice, we'll go through the visualization and the mantra, but just touching again on the importance of the four opponent powers. How they have, so opponent, why are they opponent? Because they have a power to oppose negative karma, to oppose what we want to purify, these karmas, these negativities that we don't want to result in future. I mean, basically, if we want happiness, we don't want suffering. We create the causes of happiness. That's just how it goes with karma, So, but nonetheless, we have done, as Julia said, there's stuff we do cumulatively during the day. And even then, because we're under the control of ignorance, duality, perceiving a wrong view of self, we're creating a level of karma all the time. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's, motivated by stronger feelings of anger and attachment. So to keep cleaning the mind, like we clean a room, like we clean our house, like we clean our body, we need to clean our mind. I mean, our environment, our body, everything in this life it's really a reflection of what's going on in our mind. For holy beings, for bodhisattvas at a certain level, for Arya beings, for Buddhas, there's no uncleanliness. When the mind's purified, the environment is clean and pure all the time. You don't have to clean up, We have to clean up all the time because that's a reflection of what's really going on in our mind, So that's how close karma is for us. It's like everything, our whole karmic appearance is reflecting what's going on in our mind all the time. If we've taken bodhisattva vows, tantric vows, we need to purify them because it's wonderful that we take them, but as we all know, they're hard to keep. But we need to take them, we need to train in them, but in the meantime, we need to keep purifying. That's what Vajrasattva is very powerful for, purifying and keep on top of the vows that we're not able to keep, trying to keep them as pure as possible. Bodhisattva tantric refuge vows, lay vows, and then just working on some of the karmic garbage, that we've created for past life because we don't want to suffer in future lives. If you want happiness, purify. Purify those things that we don't want to ripen as unhappiness in future lives. Four opponent powers, power of regret. Power of regret, anyone sharing their understanding of the power of regret? Mary?
Well, I just always was impacted by when I heard that the power of the success of the purification is equal to the strength of your regret.
Mm-hmm. And how do you practice regret? And how do you understand regret?
Regret is it's wishing you didn't do something or you didn't do this negative action.
Mm-hmm.
And so you regret it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you've done something to harm yourself, but you didn't realize it was harming until you had the regret.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
yes, that's right.
A strong, important part of the practice.
You're right. And out of all these powers, regret is the one, as you're really saying, Mary, it's the one it's the most important one, as you say, because the stronger a regret, now it's not beating ourselves up, because that's not helpful, but it's like sometimes this analogy, Lama Zoparim, they use in the texts. It's like if you took, like some say, oh, there's a really delicious meal, and then, later on there's something in it that's really harmful to your body, like poison or something really, then it's kind of like you want to get it out, It's a bit like that. It's like it's like you understand that the nature of that is negative. And as Mary said, it's almost like you also wish you hadn't generating that strong sense, like a really, regret, wish I hadn't done it, and then wanting to get it out, So it's kind of all that together. It's not guilt, because guilt's it's overly self-focused and it's not informed by wisdom. Regret's informed by a wisdom like understanding the evolution of karma, understanding how karma works, Just like you would understand that you ate something that you didn't realize at the time was poison, but somebody told you after that enlightened your mind, yeah? You became clear that that's poisonous, that's not good for me, and you want to expunge it for your body, yeah? So like that, you didn't understand at the time that killing, stealing, lying was negative, but then later, through an understanding of karma and also not wanting to harm others is also a very good motivation, regret. You regret and you want to get it out, You regret that because also what these karmas do is they block your happiness for future lives. We want to take care of ourselves for future lives. Morgan, you want to hear something?
I have a question.
Yes?
So I understand in terms of like ignorance and things like stealing, but I wonder about things like anger or like feelings of envy, things that, in my experience, even though now I've become more aware of like, first of all, where they're coming from actually, and karma, I still experience them because I'm not like purified. I'm not,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I feel regret for it, but is it like, what's,
Well, my experience, so first of all, like, yeah, because I think the anger and the jail, it's like mixed up with intention, isn't it? It's like it's a delusion that's in the mind. So these purification practices lighten the delusion in the mind. They're not going to get rid of it right away, but my experience has been with anger, jet, these kind of things, when the more I purify, and you do, and you recognize, okay, I'm under the control of this, I haven't got on top of it yet. I mean, it takes a while to get on top of each delusion. So we're talking about, I remember, I think maybe I shared this with this class. When I was new in the Dharma, tell me if I shared this already, but I was so excited about enlightenment and I was doing all my prostrations and my mantras and I'm like, I'm going to get enlightened this life, which maybe I might still. I think I told Sue this story one time. And she's like, well, you might get enlightened this life because it was some years later and I thought, well, maybe that was a bit too much expectation. But either way, I was very excited. And I'd just become a nun. I've been practicing for about maybe a couple of years, and then I've become ordained and I was going to these amazing teachings with His Holiness in Dharamsala. And I probably didn't remember anything else, but what I do remember, because it was over 20 years ago, I remember His Holiness saying, well, after 10 years, if you've been doing a practice and you have a little bit less anger, that's great, keep going. And I'm like, well, is that it? Is that all I'm going to have, Because I'm doing all these mantras and it's purification and I'm going to get enlightened. And he's like, after 10, I'm like, so I was a little bit like, I can't accept that, It must be more than that. But interestingly enough, and I was going to share that next week with the water bowls, I mean, even as these delusions start to lighten in the mind, it's great. It's amazing when you do feel there's an impact on the mind after doing them. So they do work, but you just have to keep moving along with them. So it's more like, so these practices work on the karmas and they also help certain purification. I think they just lighten, they start to thin these delusions. And as the delusions thin along with the karmas in the mind gets lighter and we're able to more easily understand and feel the topics of the Lam Rim. That's the benefit of purification. Does that help answer your question, Morgan? Yeah. So
There's a question on the chat.
okay, and then maybe we'll just do that, and we can carry on next week because the four powers really move into Vajrasattva anyway. What's
It says, is it kind of like mourning, mourning, like mourning?
okay? Morning. You mean the power of regret?
Yeah,
Stop share.
I think that's what they mean.
No, it's not morning. It's really this. It's hard to get another. Because, if you imagine, I mean, the only way, in a simple way, is to, can use this analogy of poison. Once you have awareness that you've taken something that's endangering your body, yeah, it's like hearing about karma, then you realize, oh my gosh, it's like Milarepa killed all those people. Then he went to Marpa and he realized Marpa, he would explain, somehow he had some recognition in his mind that that was not correct. So with awareness, you want to expunge that from your mental continuum. But if you get into mourning can be this kind of like heavy depressive thing, I think. right?
Well, I
Or
think it
not?
could be like mourning because you're so sorry. Like if you see you harm someone, it could be on
Yeah.
another, not just for yourself, but you see you harm someone and you feel so bad. It is kind of, I could see what they're saying. It could be kind of like so sad about it, like you're mourning that you did that.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't go into more grief, well, I mean, again, there's a positive grief as well. It's good to feel your grief. You need to feel the regret, but not be stuck in that because that moves easily into, I think, guilt and those kind of minds that don't empower you to want to practice the method to purify. So if a level in mourning, if you want to use that term, it needs to empower you and motivate you to purify. Milarepa felt regret, and Angulimala felt regret, and it motivated him to become a monk, to purify, to have such strong refuge in the Buddha. So it needs to be motivating, not demotivating. Yeah, because if you took poison and somebody else told you, there was some poison, you'd be like, where's the remedy? Where's the antidote? Give me it right. I mean, there's no question it would motivate you to do something. So there's a little bit of a sense of urgency to that because it's like a poison in your mental continuum because nobody wants to be born in a war-torn place, right? And also if you've harmed someone else, said something bad, well, you don't want to have that happen to you in your future lives. Somebody lying to you, saying something awful. It's like, so it's it's quite wisdom based. I feel it's very wisdom based. And the wisdom is what one really gets motivated by. For Westerners, we have to be careful. You do feel regret, but not guilt. It's a tricky one. But yeah, I think sometimes you say something to somebody and you think, I shouldn't have said that, when you lose your temper with somebody, for example, and then later on you feel like, oh, that was really not great, I mean, we've all been there. So I think that is regret. But then if you keep mulling on it, then that's not helpful. Then you think, okay, I didn't do it well. So best it's just so you think to yourself, okay, that wasn't great, do your Vajrasattvas. And then if a space comes to apologize to that person, you can, but sometimes you might not be able to because they're not listening to you, or there's just but you can purify that right away. The best thing to do in that situation is have regret and say, I need to purify that. Because again, as Morgan was saying, it was motivated by anger. I want to reduce my actions that are being motivated by anger and resentment here. So it needs to be something with skill and wisdom that you purify. So you do feel that like, and then it's like, okay, I need to purify. And with clarity and insight, it's like, okay, when I get this chance, also it'll be really good to apologize. That's very active, and that might very quickly cut the dynamic. Because actually, just by regretting an action right away, you can almost purify it just through the power of regret, as Mary was saying. Sometimes you don't need to do all this stuff. If you really deeply regret sincerely with some wisdom, I think it's this mix of wisdom and not wishing to harm, that can actually be very, like, just alone that you can purify.
It seems like there's two things going on. One is the sense of I did something to someone and therefore it's going to come back on me, yikes, like the poison. And then there's the other thing of just feeling for the person, like how it affected them. And that it is about me, say, but not so much. It's more like, oh, how did they feel? And then you feel bad about that you caused that pain. So I don't know how that plays in, but it's just a.
But that's right, Sue, because actually compassion can be one of the most, it's very purifying, like even more purifying compassion. If you genuinely have compassion for that other being, a sense of regret, and really feel compassion for that other being, that's also like, that's purifying.
Oh.
Yeah, no, compassion's like one of the most, when it's focused towards the other being, because ultimately we're deeply connected to others, but because of our delusions, we don't feel it. We feel this separateness, So that much we can actually, so you can chant Om Mani, you can do it, you don't have to just do Vajrasattva, but for higher level beings, they purify through the power of their compassion and bodhicitta, But this is
Okay,
talked
so
about
they
in the
said
realm
one
of
more thing.
karmas. Mhm.
That makes sense. So now she's saying this, That makes sense in terms of motivation and wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's what Tegan and Alexia say.
And of course, karma's very I mean, it's not easy to see karma, right? It's a hidden phenomenon. It's not so easy to see how you purify, but I think we can feel sometimes that we purify something, especially with other people. You know, so I think definitely on Money Paid Me Home, I mean, there's many practices to purify. We're just talking here in terms of the 4 powers, but compassion, I mean, high-level bodhisattvas, I don't think they need to do Om Vajrasattva. I mean, they have so much bodhicitta, you know, they're purifying all the time, they're creating merit all the time. Anger doesn't come up, you know, they just to purify, you know, because they're filled with bodhicitta. So compassion's very, very purifying, yeah. This is just another way to purify through these 4 powers. So thank you. It's both are
Never
valid.
knew that was purifying. Thank you.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, just remembering emptiness, one of the most powerful purifications is remembering emptiness. You know, if you really sit down and go, okay, there wasn't really any subject, object, action there. And that's why we do that at the end of the Vajrasattva practice. We remember emptiness because that's the most purifying. But for some of us, because we still might get over, well, say I meditated in emptiness, but I still feel really, you know, I still feel like it's sitting there, you know. So that's why we often have to do Vajrasattva or, you know, other things as well. But emptiness is the most powerful, bodhicitta and emptiness is most powerful purification. But it depends on the level of our mind. Not all of us have that power to just rely on that. So we need to rely on the 4 opponent powers as well. Okay, so we will carry on with the 4 powers and then just move into the Vajrasattva practice next week. Thank you for your questions. That was a nice chat back and forward. It was good. We all learned something.
Will you dedicate for us?
Yes, I'll put up the dedication prayer.
Okay.
So, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, as much as we can when we dedicate, we think about dedicating our own merits. The merits of each one of us here for coming here, all the energy, positive energy we put into the class, you know, just by listening, reflecting and developing more, already some or more conviction in the importance of purification, karma, observing karma. And we dedicate all the merits of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all beings, you know, together, all dedicated of the past, present, and future. For this special mind of bodhicitta, as we said, bodhicitta is like the most powerful way, relative and ultimate bodhicitta, compassion and emptiness, most powerful way to purify, you know. So for all of us to actualize that, all but sentient beings. Oi janju senjo rinpoche, mage panam gigyurshe, geba nyamba meba ye, gonne gondu pelwar shog. May the precious view of emptiness not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. May the precious realization of the 2 stages not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. For His Holiness's long life. Incomparable, kind, and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, may you have a long life, and may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And then for Lama Zopa Rinpoche's swift return, we just exchange the last 2 words with please, please, return swiftly. You uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunat's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honouring the 3 jewels, 3 rare sublime ones. Saviour of myself and others, your disciples, please, please return quickly or swiftly. Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Angie.
Okay, thank you.